Space weather. Well, you probably don't think about it often, but a geomagnetic storm has been hitting Earth over the past few days. News Channel 3's Gavin Nguyen has more on how this storm affects us here in the Coachella Valley.
Here at the Rancho Mirage Observatory, we're a little too far south to see the effects of the latest geomagnetic storm to hit Earth. However, that doesn't mean that threats from these types of storms don't exist. I spoke with experts today to learn more.
Though it can impact some things like radio communications and your power in the worst case scenarios.
Eric McLaughlin is the astronomer at the Rancho Mirage Library and Observatory. His job is to show people the sky.
It is an equatorial mount,
but he also keeps an eye on the weather in space. Geomagnetic storms like the one we're experiencing now are the result of eruptions of plasma from the sun called coronal mass ejections.
When those charged particles reach the Earth, they impact the Earth's magnetic field in such a way that drives a lot of interesting things.
The particles can get trapped in the atmosphere, creating dazzling auroras like we saw earlier this year. But they can have a sinister side. Those same charged particles can disrupt satellites, GPS, aviation, and more. Space weather, like geomagnetic storms, can be tracked just like weather here on Earth, but using less tools.
You're thinking differently because you have so much less data and less sources than we do in terrestrial weather. We have a few satellites in space and that 93 million miles between us and the sun, and a few here around Earth that we use to observe the sun and report in the data that we're interested in.
Position, their symmetry's changed a little bit.
NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center specializes in using its forecast to warn power companies and government agencies.
We call them about that kind of activity so they can try to mitigate the problem, because it develops, it sends off alarms and causes overheating on their equipment, which if they don't account for, it can cause a massive power outage that could affect hundreds of thousands of people. That's why we do what we do.
NOAA's warnings help keep the public safe, and here in the valley, McLaughlin says you should be prepared, but don't let it stop you from living your life.
You should also make sure you always have fire preparedness things on hand. If there are fires going on, it would likely not be in your home, it would likely be on power lines, but again, that is very, very unlikely and would require something far more dramatic than this event.
The experts I spoke to today emphasize that while disruptions from solar activity are possible, they are quite unlikely as you're going about your day-to-day life. I'm Gavin Nguyen in Rancho Mirage for News Channel 3.